So let me call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Okay, Alex Kay.
Here.
Mark Dutton.
Here.
Jack Ringham. Rick Conlon. Paul Jones. Here. Scott Lane. Here. Marissa Dexter. Jim Jans. John Moffett.
Okay, any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes.
I have a question about the minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have no quarrel with their completeness or their accuracy, but it would be nice as a committee member if we could get a brief summary of the discussions that go on the different issues. I know that makes them longer, which is more work, and it also makes it harder if you're searching through a whole bunch of minutes, trying to find one in particular, so it has its downside. But just throw it out as a question.
No, I agree completely. The minutes of, I'm a new guy on committee, I wasn't here last month. But the minutes of last month's meeting tell me there were 9 people here. It adjourned at 7:14. You were made chairman, and that's it. There is not one syllable, analysis, conclusion, discussion,
Well,
that
no,
wasn't in the agenda.
on each of the agenda items, it said no action taken, which is correct.
Right, okay, but that was, the agenda said no action required. I mean,
Well,
so what I'm suggesting, I'm not laying this on you. I mean, you're not,
I don't think we can discuss,
I think
because
we
this
should
is not part of
we
it.
can agendize that for a future meeting.
But just for the record, most of the time when agenda meetings are mostly just actions and motions.
Yeah.
And that's it, and that's why the videotape is for.
there shouldn't be some kind of record of what people thought.
Well, that's,
Why do we
it's all
do
in the
that?
video.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's
If
the,
you go on YouTube.
I noticed the planning commission minutes are different, because they actually discuss, go through the issues and opinions of each member. And once in a while, I'm off topic, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
There we go.
Thank you, so we can bring it up as a topic.
I wish we would.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some suggestions.
We will bring it up in the future, at the very end, we will bring it up and then we will select it as a future discussion. Okay, so, any other comments about the minutes?
I move their approval.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. No presentations, and then we can move on to the regular agenda. So, the first item is the election of a vice chair, so we didn't select a vice chair last time. So I'd like to see if anyone is wants to volunteer or nominate any member of the committee to be a vice chair, in case I can't be there.
I'd like to nominate Scott.
I think the wrinkle is that I'm scheduled to be, my term expires next year. And I haven't made a decision whether I'll ask to be,
It doesn't.
Yeah, it expires, the terms expire at the same time chairman and vice chairmanships expire.
oh, they do? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I accept the offer. I forget the whole terminology, but I accept the
Nomination.
The nomination, that's the word I'm after.
Are there any other nominations? If not, I move to consider Scott vice chair. Or I guess we already have, so I guess we just vote on it.
Well, I guess we have a nomination,
And then-
and then we just need to.
I second Scott as,
all in favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
No,
We'll talk off the
Yes.
line on like. the
Congratulations.
protocols. Thank you.
Now you have to move up to the head.
Oh, I do?
That's the penalty.
And Jim Jans is still on the,
You know, he made sure not
I'll
to
ask
be
him
here
first.
today. Jim's smart guy, he knows I won't be here today. I get selected as vice chair. Okay, so, we'll move on to 5B.
Okay, so this item was added to the agenda at the request of the committee last time. There was a concern about why there weren't any actions by the committee. And so we added it to the agenda for today's meeting. And so,
Just in case you
the
need
attachments.
Looks a little light.
I may not have all the attachments. All right. And so what we've incorporated into, as an attachment to the agenda, is the resolution that establishes, for establishing governing town committees, including the role of the rail committee as well as the council policy regarding rail. And so with that, it's open for your discussion.
Okay, so, I'll open the floor if anyone wants to discuss this item. Greg, do you have any,
Say again,
do you have anything you want to share? Or-
regarding,
Oh, this item about the role of the rail committee, you had some concerns last time about our role, what we're doing. You wanted to discuss it, and so we brought it as an item so that.
I don't remember what my concern was. What was? The role of the committee?
Well, maybe not so many. What do we do here? Something to that effect.
Well, I just thought there were so many items that were no action required, that it raised the question, what are we doing here if we don't have any action to be taken? Every item we got here, if you look at the agenda today, this is not an action item, not an action item, not an action item, not an action item. It's long, guys, have dinner. And what are we doing here?
I think part of it is, one, all of us to stay informed as committee members about what's going on. The staff lets us know their communications with Caltrain, with high-speed rail, and also for other members to inform each other. The other thing that I've seen individual committee members take is on their own initiative, look at different ways to improve rail for the community, like Marissa looking at the quiet zone. I know Paul's done some analysis before, some engineering analysis that he shared with us. Jack's looked at some stuff before, or find guest speakers to talk about their expertise. So in part, I think one, individual committee members can sort of drive some of the topics and then educate us. And then if there's something that we feel should be referred to the council, we can do so. I mean, quiet zone's a perfect example of that. Marissa did that research all on our own, and we referred that to council, and we were the first one on the Caltrain right away to have a quiet zone. So, so I think there's ways we can get involved, and but yeah, but
If I could just jump, I've always interpreted the not an action item as that is, for example, most of the items that are on our agenda aren't votable per se. Right, are not, I made up a word, they're not votable, like you don't vote on the Peninsula Corridor electrification project, at least not within the context of this particular session. But there have been in the past where we've had items on the agenda where we vote on something that we want to bring to council, which would be an action item for a city, right?
Yep.
So
such as the status of the rail station.
yeah, I'm a pedantic kind of person, so I've always interpreted that just to be like, this is something that extends beyond our group as opposed to just.
Well, let me add a couple of items. I mean, one of the primary roles of the committee is to advise council on matters related to rail. To be able to do that, the committee has to be educated and up to speed on a variety of topics. In addition, there have been a few action items related to whether it's the Caltrain business plan or the HSR business plan, that there were recommendations that came out of this committee that went to council. And so the council takes those items into consideration as to whether or not a letter should be written. And so, case in point, there was the letter to HSR on their business plan with regards to various items that the committee felt important to notify them on. Based on the recommendations out of this committee, there was also a joint session with the council on other topics. So, to be able to provide that feedback, I'll give an example of a topic that's on today's agenda, is the Doug Martin Rail Corridor. So if ultimately we need to make a recommendation, the rail committee wants to make a recommendation to council, we kind of need to be up to speed on what is happening.
No, but if we discuss something, we decide we need to make a resolution, can't we do it on the spot?
No, we have to wait until the next meeting.
You wait till the next meeting,
I mean, we meet
unless
every
it,
2 months.
if it's an urgent item, the chair can always ask that we set a special meeting. But the purpose of having, whether it's an action item or not, is really to advise, also to advise the public as to should they come to the meeting, or if they're interested in coming to the meeting, is there going to be an action taken on an item? And that they look at the agenda to basically see what actions the committee will be taking. But as of yet, there really haven't been, I don't think, any urgent issues that there wasn't time to meet at the regular meeting for. But if there is a case, there can always be a special meeting called.
As an example, the high-speed rails environmental report is due out the end of this year. And we'll be given 45 days to review that. And we'll want to review that very carefully and send our recommendation to council so that they can respond.
It has to be early enough that the council has a meeting after, before.
Yeah.
the- And then the staff has to be able,
Process.
and then the staff, once they get what council wants, has to be able to write it up, have time to write it
Yeah.
up. So we would have to probably do that early.
But, so we'll jump into some fairly active days.
Yeah.
While we're doing that. But, that's one of our jobs.
Oh, good. This first item on the role of the rail committee that referred to advise the council. Could that not be interpreted somewhat more broadly? I mean, we discuss things like, various plans that are put in front of us. The council hasn't asked us to do anything about it necessarily.
And
But
if-
to write up just a summary of our thoughts on the matter to inform them and send it to them. If they want to read it, fine. If they don't, seems to me it would be useful.
And like I said, that's happened on that occasion for specific topics. And if there's a desire to prepare a recommendation on something, then we can certainly agenda it.
Because, to just jump in, I think the town, my interpretation is that the town is constrained by the parameters for public disclosure on decision-making and topics of discussion, so that the public can make a fair determination of as to whether a topic that we have on our agenda is of interest. to
Yeah,
them.
so that they can.
And if it comes to us first, and we get it from, let's say, Caltrain or whoever, HSR, first thing somebody's gonna say is, has the trail committee seen this? What's their opinion? So then he gets it, it comes down here, you guys get it on your agenda, and we'll wait to make sure we hear your feedback.
But if there's a specific topic in the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee that you want to discuss with some sort of recommendation, then that's something that should be discussed to be put on the agenda as such.
Well, going back to last meeting, there was an item 5C, Caltrain 2040 business plan on the table. That was me. 9 grown-ups spent 30 minutes discussing it. It seems to me a reasonable function of this committee would be to jot down some views about it, what's in it, what's important about it, and just pass that on to the council. I don't see why that violates the ground. Public knows that's on the agenda. If they want to hear what we have to say, they come and listen.
I
think that could be captured in the minutes. I think minutes are probably more appropriate for that type of.
Well, that gets us back to
That-
what you
yes.
said I couldn't talk about. But
Well-
yes, that's exactly right, let's put it in the minutes.
We can talk about that, I guess, next meeting in December.
We'll have that on the next meeting.
Before we move on, is the not an action item a requirement?
Yeah, it's how the agenda is written is very clear, and it's getting clearer because we're getting pushed to make things even more clear for the public to understand, and that's why you're seeing more detailed, agendized items, even at the council. I mean,
Yeah, they went from one line, for example, for the council, it went from one line titles to 3 lines to now a paragraph almost. And they even have what they call a plain language description associated with it, along with what the recommendation is.
Can I ask why the changes? Because the Brown Act hasn't changed, so why are these changes?
I'm gonna say that as time goes on, there's more and more clarity as to what expectations are based on court cases or other things.
Based on what?
Court cases,
So someone got sued and they had to change things.
and they figured a weakness was how it was agendized, and members of the public didn't have an opportunity. Oh, I didn't know they were even discussing this in this detail. That's why that even what it says we're doing is more detailed. And that's across the board. Everybody's slowly but surely, moving into that direction and providing more information to the public.
Well, my thought last time about converting Watkins to a one-way street, could we, so we have a quiet zone, could we put that to the city council for them to just push it to the transportation committee?
Besides the fact that, not that that's a discussion item at this point, but that would be transportation and the general plan amendment, and the rail committee would probably, if it
Could
made.
we recommend to the council that they consider taking it to the transportation committee?
well, I think that, if you as a resident wanted to go in front of.
It's not a resident, it's a rail committee. We're trying to get a quiet zone for the city of Atherton, and that's the most highest priority that this town has. Is you get a quiet zone. I mean, half of the town has to suffer with those whistles. And I just think it's foolish for the rail committee to not take responsibility for any idea that would possibly create quiet zones without spending a lot of money.
It's an interesting topic, but where the origin of it starting is probably going to be exactly what Robert would say, at transportation or general plan amendment, and trying to see if the council says, hey, wait a minute, because they're gonna say the same thing. If this is of interest in a general plan amendment, they would say, obviously the purpose is, as you're referring to, would be an extension of the quiet zone, the quad gate.
Can we as a committee communicate with the transportation committee?
I don't think we've ever had a joint session related to transportation and,
Well, no, I think what,
Just try
what is
to
asked,
work.
yeah, we as a committee are making a recommendation to the transportation committee to take action.
but realistically, it's a general plan amendment, and it's even,
Where does the general plan come in?
because that's
part of the circulation.
part of the circulation, and we have no one-way roads in the town of Atherton. So the general plan is very specific. So that would be a general plan amendment, first of all, before anybody would even see it. Then transportation would say, well, is that of interest? They may even say, is it interest to rail?
So, we probably should talk about
Let's
this.
talk about that.
At some at a later time. Maybe if you want Greg after the meeting, we can talk individually with
Yeah.
Councilmember Weiss. and-
Say that again.
Oh, after the meeting.
After the meeting,
You
we
can
can
talk
talk.
with Councilmember Weiss individually about your ideas for either bringing anything to the transportation committee or changing the charter.
That's sort of a general question.
Yeah.
Can this committee decide to put on the agenda a topic that says consideration and discussion of alternative means for achieving a quiet zone?
Yes.
Yes.
And then we could have discussion that would include Watkins going on a whole bunch of things and fire it off to the council and say,
And then they
Yes.
can make the decision as to whether to direct it.
Word about it.
So, we can bring that up at a future agenda item.
Yeah.
That's one way to
Item
do it.
8.
It's one way.
Hopefully we have a bad
Other
accident
websites.
and watch it.
Yeah.
You'll regret that decision. The delay. Well, I'll defer to your wisdom. As I get you.
It's
I'm not sure I accept that
Craig, it's
responsibility.
about-
Did we elect a vice chair, what did we do?
Yes.
Yes, Scott.
All right, we got the two new energy guys. Looking forward to
We
your
haven't seen it at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm worried about it.
Let's not push them.
So we're-
Okay, so are there any other comments on 5B role of the rail committee before we move on? If not, 5C, the Peninsula Corridor Electrification Project updating discussion.
Sure, so, since our last meeting, Caltrain has acted to adopt their long-range vision. And I think we discussed what that entailed in our previous meetings. But basically, they are looking at a mixture of express and local train service, including up to 8 trains per hour per direction, for the San Jose to San Francisco corridor, 4 trains per hour between Blossom Hill and Tiananmen stations, and then 2 trains per hour down at Dover and Blossom Hill. Off-peak will have varied frequencies, ranging between 2 and 6 trains per hour. We previously presented kind of what the stopping patterns look like, which hasn't really changed. The one thing that they have kind of geared for is, though this is where they are now, not precluding going further later. And so that I think is, okay, might have missed topics. For the electrification project, I apologize, construction is ongoing. I kind of skipped over some.
Do we know what percentage of the footings are done and what percentage of the poles are installed?
I think in town we have like 2 poles.
Yeah,
All
I've
the
seen.
walls, all the footings.
Not all of foot, I think we're still missing a couple of footings near Watkins that they need to come back and do.
Yeah, it looks like there's a big gap between footing next to the rail and then the next one.
Yeah, so on this side of the tracks, there's a few footings that are missing. I'm sorry, on this side of the crossing, there's a few footings that are missing. They also have a, control house over here at Watkins that's gonna be replaced. And there was, I think we updated the committee previously, there was a question, will that be capable of housing the quad gates? And the answer we got from Caltrain was yes, but they haven't started that work yet.
And then 2 poles have gone up.
2 poles.
Yeah.
So,
So their constant warning time system is still under development.
That's what I've heard too.
Well, John, what have they been doing in front of your house?
As far as the rail goes, nothing, they've been putting in new sewage lines down.
Is that what that is?
No, not sewage, on water lines, yeah.
Oh, I
They're
thought that was
replacing
something
all,
to do
we've
with
got
the rail.
fire hydrants springing up like weeds.
yeah.
They're all new, the old ones don't put out fires anymore, I guess.
Well, they're upsizing the mains.
Yeah.
And so they're,
But they've torn up.
Yep.
A very large section of Wood Park, as I'm sure you're aware.
Is that West Bay is doing that?
no, that's
West
Cal
Valley.
Water.
Water,
Cal Water.
West Valley
Water.
Construction is this easy.
Then West Valley is their contractor.
I had a long conversation with them because they backed one of their pieces of equipment in my car.
Ooh, what?
Really? And they agreed this morning to pay for it. They were very nice about it, but
Okay, are there any other questions or
Are we
comments?
still to be determined on service after weekdays?
The stuff in the business plan is still as it was. The council's policy is still as it was, but the council has a subcommittee that's been assigned to further discussions with Caltrain on the topic. And they don't have a report.
I'm sorry,
They don't have a report out yet.
The business plan shows minimal service.
Yes, it's once an hour is what's in the business plan.
Well, I realize people have changed, but you would like to think that the people that are in the top positions, that their word could be trusted by people that follow. I would assume Mike Scanlon made it very clear, as Dave Miller did, who was the chairman, that we would have service restored once his electrification. And while they weren't specific in terms of numbers, the implication certainly was that we'd have a reasonable level of service here. And I keep coming back to the same thing. When we put in over $500,000 every year, $9 million over the 20 years of First Measure A, we have quite an investment path, it seems to me. And we do have the oldest service in the entire state with it was a drop station, it was not the physical station. 1 year later, the oldest first station came in, which was Menlo Park. So we have a long history, and we made a significant investment, and there was a commitment made to us. And often the commitments are not, I mean, Greg mentions, communication and all. The removal of the holdout, first of all, the policy of the trade is to have no holdout stations throughout the whole system. I was still on the TA when we approved that, and it was in the budget. I retired for a long time, obviously, but then the person who really opposed it was from Redwood City Council, which was Martin's wife. And so, I don't know why we can't trust the commitments that are made, and that wasn't in writing. On the other hand, well, we'll have to think of the words.
I think that in their business plan, they are restoring weekday service, and they are taking out the holdout. And that's consistent with our
We're
policy.
taking out the holdup.
Yes.
They have to.
But that's hourly service, which is minimal service.
I'm gonna say it's not super frequent. And the council has delegated a subcommittee to further the conversations about the level of service at the station.
And then they talk about the fact that we had fewer than 150 passengers. That was only after they cut out the key times of our service. When we had a lot of the kids coming here who would go to Castellea, and they would come in their little shuttle buses. And when they eliminated that service, they eliminated a lot of our ridership. And we did everything we could to encourage that. We made free parking, which is available at other stations to encourage it. We also initially made that just for the town residents, but then we expanded that. Anybody could park there free, hoping that that would help to generate it. But, what the actions they've taken, and then I complained with Mike about that, and he said, oh, well, I'm not the pond. That's my primary one. He lives on Selby Lane, on Crooked there. He said, I've got people on my staff who want to eliminate service altogether for Athens. They'd like to eliminate it for the elite community. That was what he said.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any other comments?
I was curious if, you mentioned that they get rid of the holdout station. Did they make other changes in platform heights and things like that? Or is it?
They have no choice to eliminate the platform, and the upgrades to the station have to occur with the HSR and combination of electrification. So that station upgrades have to be done.
Okay. Does that include?
That includes a roadway platform.
Yeah, the platform height, because they're installing 8 doors and they can only use half of them, for that kind of a long discussion too, but, okay, so they're gonna modernize them, are they gonna make them longer?
So I think that there's two aspects for the electrification project. The answer is no.
Right, that's
Okay.
separate.
So,
But you do the volume
but
of
you're talking
trains.
about the business plan eventuality. They first outline their service vision, and then they look at what it takes to deliver that.
But what they will give us is the same platform height we have now, no change in platform height until they get ready to accommodate high-speed rail. And then, they have a platform height problem with the cars they're buying, but that's another problem.
I think they really missed an opportunity, but that's not on the agenda. They could have solved a bunch of problems by doing the proper platform height for all the stations first. Then they'd have 4 doors that would all work properly, and they wouldn't have to go to now and later.
No, but
Not on the agenda.
Okay, if there's no more comments,
I still don't understand, why did they do the whole section?
Well, for their business plan, they will have to make modifications to our station. I can cover that.
For what purpose? I mean,
Okay.
is that that they're gonna have?
We're gonna talk about
So
the business
we're
plan.
So move
Yeah,
on
we'll
to
move on to
five D, which will cover your topic of interest.
Okay,
Okay, so
so, 5B, brief update. I think I started that previously, so I apologize for skipping that, jumping into that. So with the amount of rail service that they are proposing through the corridor, the speed of the trains, along with HSR, they're going to be required to do a variety of changes up and down the corridor. And that includes the removal of the holdout station, and other upgrades.
Flag gates.
That is
Not a requirement.
not a requirement for them, it is a requirement for HSR. And so HSR has it in their plan to put quad gates at every crossing. And I think we talked about that at a previous meeting as well.
It's a part of their plan, but it's not a requirement. Can we make a distinction there?
it depends.
They have to do it based on speeds.
It depends on the
Yeah.
speed.
Okay.
if they don't
operate
exceed
at
that,
79 miles an hour, they don't need to do it.
But
If
they're
they wanna
planning at
operate it
110.
110, they must do it.
Okay.
So that is,
And
In-
220, they have to completely separate it.
They can't run trains down here at 220.
I think
Okay.
120.
Just if they do one.
so if you want to talk
11.
more about high-speed rail, we can talk about that in the next item. Okay.
Okay, let's complete
So,
5D.
so let's complete the Caltrain business plan. Their business plan does have they are trying to make sure that they have their timing plan that will work with, HSR. And in your package, at the request of Jack, we contacted Caltrain to get information regarding the various contracts that they have associated with their business plan. And so in your package is a summary of some of the information that we've been able to obtain from Caltrain regarding the contracts. And so that includes,
It's an impressive array of contracts.
it is a variety of contracts, including a contract for 2.2 million with Fair and Piers for planning services. They have Arup, for some of the capital investment work, trying to figure out how much would be required, for analyzing costs associated with capital work. They have another engineering consulting firm for another $500,000. Another consultant for economic and statistical modeling. They have HDR for calculation inputs on financial analysis and economic cost benefit analysis. And so they have an array of these contracts. They also have some partnership stuff with Stanford that I don't have all the details for, but we'll share as we get it. And so This again was at the request of Jack to kind of see how much money was being spent on the plan. It's not a small sum of money, but it's also looking at a long-term vision that has billions and billions of dollars of expenditures. So spending the money up front to file that in is expected.
My view is it is a small sum.
So-
Considering
No,
the
no,
things that they're
consider,
trying to
yeah.
deal with, it seems to me that they don't have,
And so,
they get support other places, I guess. But this isn't much.
well, like I said, I think
And
there's
it's-
also there's also the bracket of stuff that's from Stanford. And I think one of the items that we talked about in the last committee meeting was one of their big challenges is that looking forward, their organizational structure is not where it needs to be to operate that ultimate system. And so looking at their structure, their governance and other things is also part of their business plan.
And that's what Stanford's looking.
I believe so.
They've got it scattered
Yeah.
over 14 different people down to $7,000 to take notes. I mean, that's a screwy way to run an operation.
Well, they have no technical staff. Everything they wanna have done, they have to go out and hire.
Yeah, so they have a variety, and you'll see that a lot of these are listed as on-call consultants. And so, because they have that on-call status, it's a contract that they can more easily enter into. But then they've listed also the various sub-consultants to fair and peers that's within that scope. So these are all, like I said, when it says sub-consultant to fair and peers, it's under the umbrella of the fair and peers contract.
Yeah, it looks like all right.
Well, I mean, there's a few that are outside of it, so. And so are there any questions, any other updates on the business plan?
One point, when they were first initiating the business plan, their budget was $10 million. And they were to spend it all of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, no other comments? Let's move on to 5E.
5E, so that's the high-speed rail, Northern California route update, so we can talk about that. So, similar to Caltrain moving forward with their business plan, high-speed rail adopted their preferred alternative for the Northern California route, in specific, the segment between San Jose and San Francisco. They picked alternative A, which we had discussed previously as to what that was, but what they're tying their analysis in with is the Caltrain baseline growth model. And so there will be some update needed in the future to correlate where Caltrain is going with their business plan versus where high-speed rail is doing their analysis. But one of the key things I think Paul mentioned earlier is with the adoption of the preferred alternative, they're going to migrate their way into the environmental phase. So they need to have that alternative picked so that they can do their environmental analysis.
And the alternative, if you recall, is putting the light maintenance facility east of the tracks
Brisbane.
and not adding a passing track, leaving the rest exactly the way it is.
Whereas Caltrain has a passing track.
No, well, I'm gonna say that not needing an additional segment passing track versus
Or-
Caltrain's
or-
baseline model.
But Caltrain has no plans to put passing tracks in at this point. It's in their business plan for future development, but there are no plans to do it immediately.
And so, with the recent approval of, say, measures in Brisbane, there's a conflict between what Brisbane has the area zoned for and what HSR is proposing to do there. That's a battle outside of our area, but it is a battle that will likely occur.
HSR has problems in Sacramento about getting enough money.
So,
Well, Brisbane was very vocal in their comments on. the
yeah,
two
and I
projects.
think that now the landowner with the area basically being zoned for things, the dollar amount associated with trying to take the land is going to be quite steep, I would speculate.
And we're still planning on having a tunnel from Forest Street to Park.
Caltrain in their 2040 business plan is looking at the San Francisco extension to Salesforce Tower.
This camp, San Francisco extension from
To Salesforce?
Salesforce Terminal,
Terminal.
they bought the naming rights.
they're building the tunnel now.
No.
No,
That's
that's
on
the
Third-
Central
down
Subway.
Third
Yeah.
Street, down Third Street.
And that's Central Subway, yeah, that's
Central
different.
Subway.
Muni.
But they must be parallel, they're only a block apart.
No, they're right, well, depends on where they make the turns.
It's not been designed yet.
So it's still in the drawing phase.
Yep.
Well, it's still in the talking phase.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they also need to find out
It's
it's funding source too.
It's pre-pencil.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
5D. any
well,
other-
before we jump out
Oh,
of
sorry, 5D.
5E, you had some other questions about high-speed rail?
Well, I just think that the housing situation is almost demanding that we improve the service between the valley and San Francisco, because of the traffic is so bad now that you almost have a complete logjam with 2-hour commutes both ways. And I just think that, I don't know if anybody's thinking of doing something, but it seems to me the high-speed rail should expedite, convert it into a high-speed commuter train of some kind, but I don't know where that is, so it's gotta be on the table someplace.
As I understand it, Greg, their plans are to make no changes in anything on this side until they can dig the Pacheco Pass tunnel. And they don't have the money to do that.
Or Jacob Pass, what?
Pacheco Pass tunnel, they've got a 13.5 mile tunnel under that pass plan.
Why does it need a tunnel? Is it grade that steep?
You can get up with just under 3% grade. But if you want any sort of level route, you have to have a tunnel.
Well, Germany has 6% grades, why would 3% be a challenge?
Well, it's not so much a challenge up as it is down, Greg.
Down?
Because, yeah, safety requirements coming down. If you come down a 6% grade and you lose control, you've got a real problem. The Kicking Horse Pass in British Columbia, that Canadian Pacific built, had turnouts all the way down that side for westbound trains. And they used them often. And they had many wrecks, and they finally put 2 circular tunnels in the mountain to lower the grade. So 6% is way beyond anything that railroads should rightly consider. It's just not safe.
And they also have to meet a time requirement.
Yeah.
And if you're going up and down, or going up, it's gonna slow you down, so.
They don't
It's in the,
say they will.
it's in the bond measure, they have to plausibly get,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Otherwise, they can't spend the money. Any other questions, Greg, for 5E, and high-speed rail, or anyone else?
Well, I just think it's gonna change, but I'm not sure who's driving it.
HSR. I mean, they have their alignment now picked for the segment from San Jose to Merced. And so they are going to be entering into the environmental on that piece as well.
Well, is the Pacheco Pass part of that?
Yes.
That's the way they get to the valley.
So they are planning on the 13-mile tunnel,
Yeah,
it's just how to finance it.
well, they don't have any money for it, but they're trying to spend the bond money as fast as they can.
Well, I think someday Trump, the China, if you were watching the NewsHour and their China road and rail projects, I mean, they're spending money like it's going out of style.
Well, they have money like it's in the stuff.
Well, I don't know where they're getting it, they must be
They're
printing.
printing it. There's a way to do that.
That would work.
Well,
But I think.
Not to get too off
Yeah, so
topic.
if you
We
want,
can discuss monetary
If
policy.
you want a
with that.
copy of their alignment, I can forward it to you.
But you said that the HSR was keying their timetable to Caltrain projection. Have we ever, has this committee ever gone back a little bit in history and looked at Caltrain's various projections and how they play out? How good are they at projecting? I think that might be an interesting assignment.
I think I know the answer without even having to look at
Yeah.
what the history
A
is.
rough guess.
And even if we got the answer, I don't know what we could do with that information, other than, most people would expect that to be the answer.
Mhm. Right,
I mean,
they're really good at decisions.
The planners plan and the doers do.
Yeah.
And they often don't talk to each other.
I'm sure.
Okay. So, anything else on 5E? If not, on to the Dumbarton Rail Corridor update.
Yeah, so, as everyone knows, earlier this year, there was, outreach to communities, regarding the possibility of reactivating the Dumbarton Rail line. There were, I wasn't able to attend, but I think at least one person here, did you attend?
No, I
No,
don't.
okay, yeah, they announced it, I looked at their agenda in like late December, early January, and by the time I began, they were already having some. But they have published an update on their website. I'm looking at their website now, and this is publicly available. They published a 6-month outlook of their agenda from January 2019, or July 2019 to January 2020. Their goals for the next 6 months are to identify conceptual engineering and make an environmental baseline, which includes documenting existing conditions, deciding on alignment, traffic analysis, so forth. They're also going to be doing contacting. Let's see where. Also more scoping out public comments. So they're going to be doing a reach out. People have been asking what technology they're planning on using. They still haven't made a final decision. Basically, I think it comes down to, are they going to try to have an electrified rail line to tie into Caltrain, or are they going to go diesel? They haven't made a decision, but every article you read, they seem to be a hint that they'll probably go diesel, which would be, I think, definitely amusing. But it's also accurate, like everyone going diesel at the same time Caltrain's going electrical. Even BART is
Yeah,
going diesel.
E-BART.
Yeah, E-BART is diesel, right? So there is an agenda, they have a plan for the next 6 months, although they're already halfway through it. And I'll keep you posted. I don't know what the scope is. Well, it says Dumbarton Rail Corridor. I did some research on what they're planning for. There's actually changes to the Dumbarton area in general. I think that technically that's not the scope of this agenda.
Yeah, I think our interest is really how that ties in to this side.
Okay, yeah, that's
And,
good.
what the impacts potentially could be to us as a community.
Because that rail line goes close to Atherton.
Yeah. One other thing I know that they're still debating are station locations. That's still, what I recall from my meetings, one location that they're contemplating is the one where, what's the name of that? There's that strip mall on
Marsh, I think it's just called Marsh.
Marsh Manor, I think it is Marsh Manor. they are contemplating that for the location, and spectral location. I would personally, if editorializing, you would think they'd want to have at least one station in the, Belhaven community or Facebook, and say that we contributed a lot of money that, to me, seems like a foregone conclusion, that they'll have at least one station there, and then at least one other station before they tie into the. Yes.
Well, and they may or may not tie into the Caltrain tracks.
I was wondering about that, they might just have a stop.
They may just have a
Stop
stop
and-
across platform.
Like number.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good analogy, yeah, okay, yeah, so they're discussing all this.
So thank you, Scott.
It seems puzzling to me that even in question, it's always been part of the Caltrain plan. When we did the Measure A, that was a project we had added.
Yep.
We did an option part of that, which we didn't exercise that. It was paid through TA, though it isn't a permanent one, it has to be renewed, so that was why I was doing the same things. And it was always part of Caltrain, and the people doing the study for this, the EIRs, of which we had several, have been Caltrain people. So to me, I mean, I don't understand why there's even any question about whether it's part of the Caltrain system. It was always part of the planning, it was the Caltrain people that were doing the work, and it's becoming so much more important now as we have more and more congestion. I mean, we all experience it, people in my office that come from East Bay that can't afford to be here anymore, so, you know, they end up times sometimes taking 2 hours coming across that.
That's what I was saying.
Yep.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Awesome.
And so it's really critical,
Yeah.
it will provide potentially a lot of relief for all of us.
Yeah.
This is, as we all know, huge jobs, housing imbalance, and it's really critical. The reason, and in terms of why there was a Dunbarton study group put together, it's Howard Good that did that, because he wanted to involve the communities that are along the line. That's why Menlo was in there, Redwood City was in there, East Palo Alto, and of course the East Bay, Union City. So that they could have an input into the locations of the stations. And it's been frustrating because, you know, they've done EIRs before, and then they were initially looking at it in terms of the volume of traffic projected between here and Newark and, say, Fremont. And then the numbers weren't great at that time, and so then it was expanded. It included those, this was before you had the ACE system, which, you know, that has made a big difference. And their projections were very low. I mean, they ended up in the first year having double the number of trains for the ACE system, and that was to connect up with the system here. I mean, we would connect up with the Dunbarton, with ACE, the Capital Corridor, and Amtrak, does all of that. So, and the real interest came on this side of the bay, because we're feeling those impacts. And then it was Ted Leppert, who was Assemblyman member, who got people in the East Bay, and the Assemblywoman who became Secretary of Education. Again, her name, she was mayor of one of those 3 cities. She became interested, got East Bay involved. And then there have been different measures, transportation measures to raise the funds. And we all know the different things that have happened. One of the occasions was when they borrowed part of the money, and then within a year, that was a loan forgiven. I mean, it's pretty crazy what's happened, and a lot of our Measure A funds have gone into that too. So, you know, it has to happen. It'll give on both sides a great deal of relief, because that's where the traffic is. I mean, when we were first studying that, the traffic on the highway in Dunbarton was like 20,000 a day, and within not that many years, it was 75,000. I don't know what it is today, but a huge increase. And then of course, then the Dunbarton bus, that was Ted's idea, Ted Leppert, to get people using transit, then they would more easily shift over to the train when that service was there. So I hope that we will have that service at some point, but it's been a long delay.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, we can move on to 6, committee
committee and staff member comments?
Okay, so I do have, you may have noticed, on the agenda that, Anthony Whalen is not listed there. Anthony tendered his resignation from the committee last week. He noted personal reasons. And so he is, no longer part of the committee. Typically, when there's a vacancy this early in the year, the town will recruit for fill-in, particularly when there's an issue with quorum and stuff. That's not necessarily the case with this committee with as large as it is. But it's unclear as of yet, and I hope to update you in the future whether recruitment will happen soon or it will be deferred to the general recruitment for the coming
Next
year.
June.
Yeah, so typically, I think for the next June 11th, I think the announcements go out in like March or so. So
So when you have someone who resigns, what is quorum based off of? Is it the maximum?
it's
number of
it's
people or
the
number of-
original number.
So it's always 10.
Yeah, so right now we're at 10. With 9, it's still the same number. Okay.
So will be 5 or 6?
It's
Five.
Five.
Oh, quorum is 50%.
Quorum
I always
is
thought
five.
quorum was greater than 50%.
Typically, it's an odd number of folks in the committee. And so, like I said, it doesn't really affect us in terms of quorum at this point. It'll be council driven as to when that recruitment goes out.
Okay.
We don't even know yet.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other comments from staff?
Not at this point.
Committee members, anyone have any comments?
I want to thank you for the job you've been doing.
Oh, thank you.
Scott, thank you for voting for yourself.
That was very brave.
So, keep it in every pocket.
Did I miss the inauguration address of the vice chair?
You did, you did. It was somewhat contentious and unknown, but Scott spoke.
Did he have any comments?
It was a close race.
Yes. But he twisted arms and got unanimous consent. I do have a couple updates. There's some machinations going on at Sequoia Station in Redwood City. So the developer Lowe Group is proposing a new large development at Sequoia Station. A very large development, one 17-story building, 3 10-story buildings, 2 8-story
The
buildings.
largest development in the city's history.
Yes.
So that's how large.
Very, very large. And they are going to need a lot of amendments to the city general plan because obviously they're going to go through some breakthrough height requirements, they're going to have reduced parking ratios. The expectation is that because it's going to be a Redwood, the rail station is there, people are going to be coming and going by rail. So that's why that's how they're justifying the fewer parking requirements.
Would that be on the shopping center space?
Yeah, they basically bulldozed down that. They're also proposing to take over a building on top of where the bus stations are. And then also perhaps using some of the land, that parking area north of
I'll forward an article
The developer has
Just
3
say-
lots.
to the committee. I'll forward an article that was in, I think it was.
This is the first proposal.
Yeah,
and
it's
It's a
actually-
Hail Mary
Yeah.
proposal.
But it's my understanding that they have not officially submitted anything to Redwood City yet.
No official, well, it's on their Redwood City development page. But there's no, I think they just alerted them, we're gonna have something, they created a page for it, but there's no official documents yet.
Will it be mixed use or is it housing?
Yeah,
Mixed use,
it's
housing,
housing, shopping, so it's
Okay,
everything.
so it's
Redwood
everything.
Park is doing.
train station, you name it, everything.
And the somewhat interesting part is that if there's ever gonna be 4 tracks in Redwood City, or if they're gonna make it kind of a major transit center, this might conflict with that, because I mean, basically, if they wanna make it 4 tracks, they're gonna have to take some of this land, I mean, and probably take down some of the shopping centers. That's my speculation.
Caltrain wants 4 tracks, they better
Better get it now.
Yeah, before the land becomes too valuable and then they gotta pay through the nose. But
Is
that's,
there any discussion about having a high-speed rail stop there?
No.
but, one of the reasons why they wanna do 4 tracks is so it can be a passing track, because it's right in the middle of the San Jose to San Francisco route, so that you have trains pass while one's at the station. What else is somewhat interesting here? So that's it. So, they are planning to have the CEQA starting in the winter. And then they want to have that document ready by 2021 for the Redwood City Council to consider the add-on.
Ambitious.
Yes, so that's the plan. Obviously, plans change. Another somewhat interesting news in grade separation. San Bruno and South San Francisco are looking at grade separating Scott Street and South Linden Ave. So they're starting a study. Those are the last at-grade crossings in those 2 cities. And it would give Caltrain a large contiguous grade separated path from North San Francisco all the way to, I can't read what I wrote here. But basically it would be a long contiguous grade separated track for them. So they're discussing the options and they had a community meeting and going through different options, but that's something that those 2 cities are looking at.
Yeah, if they put that in, it'll be essentially grade separated into Fourth and King.
Okay. Well, to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. No other committee member statements? Okay.
Who can talk now?
I'm just giving some updates.
Do you have any comments on the China, like, what they're doing? Have you watched it? I've only got to see a couple.
I have seen some articles on it, yeah. It's very widespread and it's very expensive and it is being accused of putting the recipient nation in debt so that they can then own it.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, future agenda items. So I have 2 items for the future discussion of minutes. Just general understanding of that, what other committees do, how we may be able to approve it for the rail committee, and then talk about Watkins Rail Crossing.
We can broaden that a little bit.
This problem, we'll just talk about the rail crossing.
An alternative, I think the topic was rail crossing,
Alternative
alternative approaches to quiet zone.
Yeah, instead of Watkins, make it quiet.
What's happened in Narissa?
She's just been absent.
She's been absent. Yeah.
Absent.
Absent.
No, is that permanent or temporary?
I didn't hear resignation.
You say that?
No resignation.
It's temporary.
I missed August, so that happens.
Or good fishing.
So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay.
Aye.
Okay,
All in favor? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
And we have 30 days before, to add something to the agenda?
Well, I'm gonna say this, is that, if we're not talking about it here, you can have a sidebar with Alex to see if it's something appropriate to go on the agenda. And if it doesn't get on the next one, it could be brought up on an official.
People getting very high salaries.
Doing something. So I think this is, I don't think this is agenda, like, you don't have to worry about
They
project,
did
but
put out.
I've been taking some interest in sort of transportation, rail history in the Bay Area, and I find it kind of fascinating.
And late
I would actually argue that public transportation 100 years ago was better than it is now. And
There wasn't much choice.
So.
Right, because no one had time to transportation.
That's
Always a real
It's
choice.
it's kind of fascinating to see where.
They have a
footprint
plan.
used to be.
Right.
And I thought it might be kind
Even in the
of
valley.
rail related, but it's not happening. So
Right.
it's debatable whether it's really.
Well, like I said, you can talk it over
Yeah.
with Alex, just
It's
on
the
the
strangest real
side
project
topic.
I've ever
We're
heard of.
Yeah,
Daily City, give a presentation on each
yeah, I
streets.
thought when he.
And went back.
Did a historic view.
Did a historic view, and it was a real complete
We all
street
hope
ranging
that-
from the trolley that they had running down Mission,
Right.
the people walking,
the
the cars, the horse and
I don't know
buggies,
what they're.
and the bicycles, so everybody was using the road
Yeah.
in a multimodal fashion.
Strange.
Yeah, we should have done a better job.
No bike
Back then.
I
And,
know, but there's no lanes, everyone knows lanes, it's dirt.
Yeah.
Everyone just did whatever.
There was barely any papers.
Yeah.
Widening roadways.
Now you wanna go together?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Consideration.
Yeah.
You know.
Sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right.
Why did we not-